American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tellustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast, brought to you by Coach Paint. My name is Nick Knudsen. My co-host is Robert Parker. Today is April 29th, 2021, and we are breaking down round one of the NFL draft. Rob, it's about 1 a.m. here. You just got done with a 4-hour live stream over on the Extra Point. How'd that go?
Oh, man, I tell you what, it went awesome. Anytime you get to talk about football, doesn't matter how long it is, it's always amazing. So I love talking football and talking it with football heads. Hey, no matter, we can do it all night.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, we're going to do just a kind of quick hitters, our immediate reactions for the big moves of round one. Before we dive into the draft itself, though, I think the bombshell of the day came out of Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. I know we are going to be a college football centric podcast, but that's just huge news, and it's the NFL draft season, and we got to mention that. Rob, is this anything? It seems to be a little more than just talk from Aaron Rodgers. Seems like they're looking to make a move potentially, and I heard the Broncos were sniffing around pretty heavily. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, why would I go to Denver and try to compete with Pat Mahomes twice a year?
Yeah, you're right about that. I think, it's definitely more than talk when it comes to this Aaron Rodgers, all the hype that's surrounding Aaron Rodgers in regards to, not wanting to be in Green Bay anymore. I think the writings was on the wall last year when they drafted Jordan Love. And then he came out and he made a statement saying that, that particular night he drunk 4 fingers of tequila. So that sounds like a quarterback that doesn't want to be there. And that was last year. And the only thing he did was went out and win the MVP. So he said, hey, I'm showing you that I can still play. So I think, Aaron Rodgers is saying, hey, I have the leverage. I'm the the current MVP of the NFL. So I want out, or I want more weapons on the offense side of the ball. But, we're going to get into the picks and talk about what Green Bay did and didn't do or should have did. But I really think this Aaron Rodgers talk is real. It's the real deal.
Yeah. So we'll see if a move like that is made, throughout the rest of the weekend. So we'll keep our eye on that, but nothing happened tonight in round one. But round one, franchise changer for the Jacksonville Jaguars, pick 1, Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. No surprise here. We've been expecting it. Urban Meyer's pretty much been openly talking about it. You don't see that a whole lot. For even with the Zach Wilson, the Jets wasn't a surprise that too either, but they weren't openly telling Peter King about it. Like Urban Meyer's pretty clear about who they were taking. No real surprise there. Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville. We talked about it on our previous show. I feel like this is a franchise changer for the Jaguars. I mean, they were saying the last time a coach and a quarterback who had won a national title paired up in year one of it's only happened one time before that they paired up in their first year in the league. Jimmy Johnson and Troy Aikman out in Dallas. So hey, that's some good company to join there. I got that from Scott Van Pelt. That's some good company to join right there. Rob, obviously the roster needs some more rebuilding, but we saw the Jags take Clemson teammate, running mate there, Travis Etienne, the second round. And hey, a lot of the picks we saw projected in that first round, you might say that ETN pick was a bit of a reach, but Najee Harris had come off the board. So if you like them, if you like the running back, go grab it. Go ahead. And they still have Pat Fryermuth, Trevon Morwig, and Christian Barmore on the board to open up round 2 here on Friday.
Yeah, I tell you what, I just can't get behind the narrative of, you can find a running back later on in the later rounds. When you have a talent like Travis Etienne and Najee Harris, you go out and get those guys. So I think that's what Jacksonville did. They paired him up with Trevor Lawrence, who's very familiar for him. And I tell you what, Urban Meyer, he wants to come in. He wants to run a wide open offense. He wants to have speed on the field. And James Robinson is not the fastest running back in the NFL right now. Maybe, he's not that fast. So getting Travis Etienne to kind of have him in the backfield with Trevor Lawrence, I think that was a great pickup for Jacksonville moving forward and 2 cornerstone pieces for that franchise.
Yeah, if you had told me before today, running back at that second pick, I would have been like, but I like ETN. I could wrap my head around it. It's not crazy. The Jets, we knew about Wilson. We're not going to spend a ton of time on that pick there. Lots to suss out with the Jets too. Jets also made a move, by the way, Robert. They traded up to pick number 14 to grab Elijah Vera Tucker, get a little protection for that quarterback that they drafted. Like the move, but I again, when you're in a position with where you're someone like the Jets, you don't really need to be giving away a whole lot of picks. So even though I like that they grabbed the guy they wanted, could have sat and waited, but your Vikings were the beneficiary of the Jets' aggressiveness there.
My Minnesota Vikings was the beneficiaries of the Jets being aggressive because I think, out of the offensive tackles that got picked between the Jets and the Minnesota, I think Minnesota actually got the better one in Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. So, but just like you said, the Jets moved up and got the guy that they wanted, Elijah Vera Tucker. I think right now they have 2 bookend tackles that they can put out there to protect Zach Wilson. They drafted Mekhi Becton last year out of Louisville, and you know what kind of draft pick he's going to be. He had a good year. He's a man he's a man beast. So therefore, I think that's shoring up that front end bookend with Elijah Vera Tucker and Becton. I think Zach Wilson has no problem sitting in the pocket and just finding his targets downfield. So good 2 pickups for the Jets.
Not bad there. All right, now pick number 3. This is where the draft really was opened up. We spent the most time talking about this pick over the last few weeks here, but San Francisco trading in. Everyone knew they're going to go quarterback, but legitimate discussion over whether it's going to be Mac Jones, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance. But I would have put Trey Lance at a distant 3rd in that conversation. And I know maybe Fields was something that I was just insistent on about including, but I'm really surprised they didn't go Fields. I'm even more surprised they went Trey Lance over Mac Jones. But hey, let's do the positive with Lance first. Beast of a quarterback, complete body type of an NFL quarterback, no doubt about that. He's got all the tools you want in an NFL quarterback in general. I mean, there's no complaints about his arm strength. There's no complaints about his athleticism and running around and everything. He played in pro style offense at North Dakota State. Clearly something Shanahan. I saw Shanahan and the GM John Lynch, they got interviewed on Van Pelt afterward, and they were just saying, "Hey, every time we watch tape with this guy, we just fell more and more in love with the pick." So they're confident. They're confident in the pick, but I love their game plan, Rob. And here's what's selling me on the pick: they're not trying to ship Garoppolo out of town. So let Lance develop, keep Garoppolo around, maybe 1 to 2 years, and hey, maybe we won't see Trey Lance start a game, but if Jimmy G goes down, your season's not a total disaster necessarily, and you got that guy for the future that can jump in the game. So I think it's a really smart pick by San Francisco, as long as they're keeping Jimmy around to let this kid develop a little bit.
And I'm right there with you, Nick. I tell you what, I like this pick. Me personally, I just think, if I had that pick with the San Francisco 49ers and, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson is off the board, I will go Justin Fields. But, going Trey Lance is not that bad, because if you're going to trade up to the number 3 pick and give away a lot of assets, you want to draft up and get a player that's going to be a transcendent player for your franchise. And I know everyone was saying Mac Jones at the number 3 position, but he just doesn't come off as being that transcendent, quarterback. You know what you're going to get out of him. His ceiling is not really that high. You question his athletic ability. You question the fact that he played at Alabama with all the weapons surrounding him. So Trey Lance is the better prospect. He's still raw. He can only get better. He can't get worse. He can only get better. And if Kyle Shanahan is the quarterback whisperer and the offensive guru that we know he is, I think he can, get him going in the right direction. But you mentioned it, Nick. Jimmy Garoppolo is still the San Francisco quarterback. And this San Francisco team is not too far removed from, the Super Bowl. So, Trey Lance it's a luxury pick because, the San Francisco just have a good roster, that everyone comes back from their injuries and from COVID and everything. They're right back in the thick of things. So Trey Lance can kind of sit and take that same approach that, Andy Reid took with Patrick Mahomes, moving up and drafting him and letting him sit behind Alex Smith for the year. So I think you can kind of see a similar situation with Trey Lance and San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, great landing spot for him from Lance's perspective. Awesome landing spot for him. So that we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it works out. Awfully aggressive move to trade up to 3 for the guy, though. Would have thought you could have maybe sat back a little bit and maybe in the latter part of the top 10, maybe still grab them. Kyle Pitts to Atlanta. Hey, Atlanta, this was where I said the draft gets interesting because did you, Jeremy, and I, did we have about a 45-minute conversation on the Falcons the other day? Like where you could have gone 100 different ways. Do you keep Matt Ryan? Do you push for the future? We played every scenario out. But they're keeping Matt Ryan. That wasn't a secret anymore. So Kyle Pitts makes a lot of sense in this pick to me because, number one, the future is coming, and Julio Jones will not be an Atlanta Falcon forever. Now, if they go ship him out of town in the next couple of days, you're just basically replacing one piece for the other. I would love to see a couple of years of Julio, Kyle Pitts, and Ridley all going out and running routes together. That would be a blast to watch as a casual fan. But if you're a Falcons fan and that defense still needs some work, you better have an offense that can score a ton of points.
Yeah, and I tell you what, the offense side of the ball really wasn't a problem last year for the Atlanta Falcons. You know what they can do on the offense side of the ball. They put it up points. It was more so their defense. So, they wasn't going to go defense that early at the number 4 spot because outside of Michael Parsons, maybe it wasn't someone that was worthy of that number 4 pick on the defense side of the ball. So what you do, you take the best available player on your board, and that was Kyle Pitts, regardless of position. Outside of Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Pitts was probably the best player on many teams' boards, and that's what Atlanta did. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to be, that, Tony Gonzalez, that Travis Kelce, that Antonio Gates type of tight end, that Rob Gronkowski type of tight end that can, flex out wide and, line up inside. And one thing that the Atlanta Falcons have is Hayden Hurst. So maybe you're going to see Hayden Hurst lined up on the line and Kyle Pitts split out a little bit wide. Hopefully Julio Jones stays and you have Julio Jones, Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst and Matt Ryan throwing the ball. That's a pretty deadly offense side of the ball. So, but they got to get that defense in order. So maybe they, take a run on defensive players in the later parts of the draft. But I think it was a great pick for Atlanta Falcons. You can't pass up on a talent like Kyle Pitts. So great job to give Matt Ryan another weapon. But whoever is the heir apparent to Matt Ryan is definitely going to have a sexy new toy in Kyle Pitts.
Well, that's the thing. It's not that you're just sending Matt Ryan out gracefully. It's that you're going to have that there for a new quarterback to break in. Like, hey, Kyle Pitts not a bad target for anybody to throw to. So I think that the Falcons could have outsmarted themselves here. Smart pick. They just fastball right down the middle. It's not like the creative or whatever like that, but like, hey, Florida Gator fans here, right? Kyle Pitts, you won't have a problem with him, Atlanta. You'll be just fine. Jamar Chase going to Cincinnati. Hey, first off, outside of the San Francisco thing, the mock drafts played out pretty good in the top. I'd say the top 8 or 9 we're everybody mocked it pretty good here. Like it's usually destroyed by this point. But Jamar Chase is Cincinnati. I like the Burrow reconnection. I didn't realize how many college reunions we have going on here in this first round. So we already talked about one with ETN and Lawrence. You got Burrow and Chase, who had a magical season at LSU in 2019. Hey, I mean, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm just like, if I'm running the Bengals, I'm just trying to be Joe Burrow's best friend for a while. Like, hey, you want Jamar Chase? We'll go get Jamar Chase for you. We'll go do that. I mean, on top of that, Chase is absolutely a beast, and he had the year off, which people could knock. But are we going to talk about the fact that having the year off when you're healthy, that these guys, Jamar Chase has probably never not played football in a year. So you get these guys, they're going to be totally fresh coming in. They might get some nagging injuries, but I guarantee they've been training. Most of these guys been training pretty well, and they tested well. So you're going to get a fresh Jamar Chase heading in to his rookie season, and that guy's probably going to be amped up to get back onto the field, and he's got his boy Joe Burrow with him. Love the pick by Cincinnati.
Yeah, I love the pick as well. Not only does he have his boy Joe Burrow, he has freaking T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd as well. So just look at that receiver corps. That probably can be one of the best receiver corps moving forward if they all stick together. We saw how T. Higgins came on last year towards the end of the year, and you know what kind of talent he was at Clemson. So you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd that you can play in the slot. And then if Joe Mixon can kind of stay healthy and get going, I think you have a bevy of weapons for Joe Burrow on the offense side of the ball. Now, I know it's a lot of, tackles in this draft. So maybe they, a lot of people wanted them to take Penei Sewell to kind of, beef up that offensive line and give Joe Burrow some protection. But you went out and you got the best available player after Kyle Pitts on the offense side of the ball and Jamar Chase. And I think that's going to help Joe Burrow moving forward. So I really love this pick from Cincinnati. I like the reunion. And I think, they're going to work in unison, especially with T. Higgins on one side and Jamar Chase on another. So I love it.
All right. Speaking of another reunion here, we got Tua and Jalen Waddle coming together in Miami. They didn't waste any time on that pick. That was the pick. They got the card right up there. They knew who they wanted. Waddle, obviously fantastic. I think he's totally deserving of the pick, despite the injury time last year. I mean, this guy has been one of the most electric players in college football the last several years. With their second first-round pick, the Dolphins ended up, I believe, it was pick number 18. They took Jalen Phillips, who, I mean, at one point this guy was one of the top recruits in the country at UCLA, transfers to Miami, has a great year, and it's got all the physical tools you want in an elite pass rusher. It's just one of those picks that it's definitely a roll of the dice. I mean, the kid went to UM, so they got a close-up look at him last year with some scouting during the COVID year, so you probably paid a little extra attention to the local guys, and they must have liked what they saw from him to take him at 18. So I think Miami, that's a pretty educated guess on a guy like Phillips. I like if they feel good about that. I like the picks. I think that you come away getting you got more explosive if you're the Dolphins. 2 picks, you're much more explosive on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think, if you're the Dolphins, you get Tua another weapon that he can kind of grow into. Lynn Bowden Jr. is already on that roster. So him and Jalen Waddle is kind of the same similar player, but I think Jalen Waddle is a little bit more explosive. And, it's a copycat league, Nick. So everyone's looking for that Tyreek Hill. And Jalen Waddle is one of those type of players that can be that Tyreek Hill guy. You can also, day one, if he struggles at the receiver position, he can still, put him back there on kickoff return and punt return. I know, you don't want to put your top draft pick, back there, but that's the luxury that Jalen Waddle gives. And just like you said, with Jalen Phillips, you're right. With the COVID year, all the scouts really didn't get a chance to go to the game, so maybe they did keep it locally. I think you kind of saw the same thing with J.C. Horn going to Carolina. I think that was more of a local thing where, you had more eyes on him watching his games and watching, practices and stuff like that.
Right, another one.
I think that's a fair assessment to make. But I think the Dolphins did a really good job. They got a good offensive player, explosive, and they got a good defensive player that's explosive. So one thing you want to do, you want to help your quarterback, and on the defense side of the ball, you want to be able to rush the passer. So if Jalen Phillips can do that, I think the Miami Dolphins, will be good moving forward. They already have those corners on the outside, and Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. So if you can get a pass rush, those corners only becomes a little bit more better than what they are now. So I like the Dolphins draft in the first round.
Moving on to number 7 with Detroit. Penei Sewell slips, obviously not getting picked up by Cincinnati, slips to Detroit. And on paper, you immediately go, great pick, top player on the board. I mean, your tackle position, you now have Taylor Decker. By the way, shout out to ourlads.com. They already have Penei Sewell on the depth chart. So if you ever like a depth chart, if you ever like checking out depth charts, or you're a fantasy football guy, you want to see our guy slots in, ourlads.com, check it out. They already have the Lions depth chart updated to have Penei Sewell at right tackle with Decker at left tackle. That's pretty solid considering you got a new quarterback in Jared Goff. However, big however for me, Rob, why not Justin Fields? Come on, Dan Campbell, you're starting a new era, man. And I get it. I get like he wants to play tough, hard-nosed football, and we're gonna bite kneecaps, and I get all that. Taking a tackle is pretty in line with that press conference there. And Penei Sewell, by the way, you hear nothing but good things about the guy, and culture-wise too, like good pick culture-wise. But man, I like the idea of taking Justin Fields and maybe see how that goes, but they probably couldn't justify it with the Goff trade. I'm guessing that's what they had in their mind. Are you a believer in Jared Goff enough to a point where you're cool like skipping on Justin Fields?
Yeah, with all the reservations that Justin Fields was getting during this draft process, I think a lot of teams were comfortable with their situation. Me personally, if it was me, I would have swung the dice on Justin Fields at the number 2 pick. I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. You talk
But
about
Detroit
those.
specifically.
Yeah,
With
Detroit,
the Goff situation, how do you feel if you got Goff and you just traded for Goff? But let's be real, the real prize to the Stafford trade, where there's a draft picks and Goff just kind of came in. Here's our quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with Goff. He's still young. He went to a Super Bowl. You know what you're getting out of him, and I think that just outweighed the fact of all the reservations surrounding Justin Fields. So if you're the Detroit Lions and Penei Sewell kind of falls in your lap at that particular point, I think you take Penei Sewell because I think Penei Sewell will be there longer than Jared Goff. So whoever's going to be the new quarterback is going to need some protection. So I think it was the right decision at that particular time to take Penei Sewell over Justin Fields for the Detroit Lions.
I disagree. I would have loved to see them take Fields there, but they do the conservative approach and they end up taking Sewell. At pick at number 8, we referenced J.C. Horn. 2 corners, the next 2 picks with the Panthers and Broncos. Safe picks. At NFL, it's passing game. You see how much offense is coming off the board. These are the first 2 defensive picks at 8 and 9. And Horn, great player, South Carolina. Surtain, great player, Alabama. I don't have any real strong critiques on either one of these picks. Surtain was mocked as the first corner off the board more often than not, but Horn just seems like more of a lockdown guy to me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think he's more of a both of these guys, in Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn, has that NFL pedigree because their fathers played in the league. But I just think you're right. I think Patrick Surtain Jr. is the more cleaner, polished prospect between the two. But I just think J.C. Horn, the way he worked out at his pro day, the fact that he played in South Carolina, he played in the SEC. And just like we said, we talked about, having eyes on you as far as scouts. I think, those Carolina scouts had more eyes on J.C. Horn, and they were just comfortable taking him at that position. So if he's your guy, go ahead and take him. And you know what Carolina did with the defense that had a lockdown corner in Josh Norman with Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis Jr. So I think they're trying to get back to that mode right there. We're building that defense up. So great pick for Carolina. I really like the J.C. Horn pick. tomato between him and Patrick Surtain. They're 1A, 1B, but they're not that far apart. So
I think it depends on the style you're looking to
yeah,
play.
I mean, if you want to play, more physical man press, then I think you go with J.C. Horn because he's the more, bigger defensive back. But if you kind of want to play that man off, then you go with Patrick Surtain. But either or wouldn't have mattered. I think it's a great pick for both teams in Denver and Carolina.
All right, let's move on. This is where the draft started getting pretty exciting. You got the Eagles trading up into the 10th spot with the Giants. A little unusual with the in-division trade. You don't see that too often. But Devonta Smith goes to Philly. They are receiver starved, to say the least. Reunited with Jalen Hurts. The two of them didn't play together a whole lot on the field. I think they said they played like something like 12 snaps together. It wasn't much. They haven't played much together, even though they're both Bama guys. But hey, we've seen what Philly can do with a deep threat, undersized receiver for a long time with Deshaun Jackson. We've seen that role, and really nobody's filled that role in Philly since Deshaun Jackson left. I mean, I'd really say like maybe Alshon was a receiver, was really solid for a few years, but he wasn't like that burner. He was just a big target that you can throw the ball up to. But like Devonta Smith's going to be a different type of receiver. And hey, maybe Devonta coming in opens things up for Rager to develop. And if you can get both of those guys to develop, whoo, Eagles might have a little bit of offense next year. And I mean, of course, you're getting Miles Sanders back and everything. So I'm with Ertz up the middle too. Like, I mean, you might have a little bit cooking in Philly next year on the offensive side of the ball. What do you think of that pick?
Yeah, I really like the pick. I think, the Eagles, wanted a receiver and they had to move up and get him because I think, if they never moved up, I think the Giants would have drafted Devontae Smith. And it was pretty much evident because the Giants drafted a receiver.
Do you think it's weird the Giants backed out of it though?
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, you kind of want to get those picks. So if you can kind of get a receiver or a player that's around the same caliber and that has the same upside, then I think you can kind of trade back in and get the picks to kind of build out your roster. And I think that's what the Giants did. And they knew the Eagles wanted Devontae Smith really bad. So they used it against them. But it worked out for both teams because, not only Devontae Smith goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, but, Kadarius Toney goes to the New York Giants, which I think he can have an impact right away.
I worry about the Giants being creative enough for Kadarius Toney, but we'll get to that in a minute because this is the highlight of round one, in my opinion, and maybe because we're Fields guys, but Fields finally goes at 11. But I love that Chicago is. You talk about taking a home run swing here, man. They're going all in, and Ryan Pace is still sitting there at his press conference saying Andy Dalton's QB1, like. Okay, dude. Like, are we trying not to hurt Andy Dalton's feelings here? Like, if Justin Fields is not on the field by about October, you guys might not have a job next year. Like, I'm thinking like Chicago better be like, hey, Fields is going to be our guy this year. But we haven't seen the Bears play with a top level quarterback in our lifetime, so it's going to be fascinating to see if Nagy came to I remember when Nagy was hired in Chicago. I love their approach. They were going to go more up tempo. A lot of their signings made sense. They're like kind of my fantasy sleeper team that year that when Nagy came in, and they just have never gotten it going. Part of the reason is Trubisky, but I don't know if that's entirely the reason. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets his second crack with a young quarterback here to see how that turns out with Fields. But I think with Fields, you're getting a much more proven player than you were with Trubisky. And hey, Detroit, you passed on him. You could have had him. Another reason why I think Detroit should have taken him in 2020 hindsight, obviously. But like, hey, he's in your division now. You're going to play him twice a year.
Yeah, you're right about that one, Nick. But I tell you what, if Justin Fields doesn't come in and start right away, I wouldn't be concerned because at the end of the day, Andy Dalton is a savvy veteran. He's been there, done that. I know he kind of got killed a lot last year because he had a horrible year with the Dallas Cowboys. But he pretty much led that Cincinnati Bengals team to the playoffs year in and year out. So I think, Justin Fields can wait a little bit, and I think it's a great situation for him landing in Chicago. We always known Chicago as being a defensive team, but now, it's flipping. The tides are turning right now because with Justin Fields being your franchise quarterback moving forward, now you have to build around Justin Fields. So I think, they hit a home run with David Montgomery at the running back position. Allen Robinson is on the franchise tag, but they can re-up and give him a big contract if he plays well this year. And then you have Darryl Mooney, who's drafted. So I think you have some weapons to work with, and Cole Kmet, the tight end that they drafted last year. So I think Justin Fields will have some weapons to work with moving forward, but you kind of want not to rush his progress. You kind of want him sit and wait with Andy Dalton. But if Andy Dalton's playing horrible, then, why not give Justin Fields a crack at it to see what he can do? But if Andy Dalton is playing okay, let Justin Fields sit. And I think that will help him not only in the future, but help the team as well.
I'll say this, Rob. I don't know if I have a ton of confidence in the current administration with Pace and Nagy. But I think the Bears, this move itself is going to be their legacy, whether they're around to enjoy it or not in the next few years. Because I think this is totally I'm not going to sit there and say it's the Mahomes trade up, but didn't the Texans trade up to take Watson? Basically, I think that's when I look at Fields, he kind of reminds me of Watson a little bit when I look at, except maybe a little thicker. I think he could handle a few more hits. Watson was pretty lean. You go back and watch him at that championship game against Alabama. He's a skinny dude. Fields isn't a skinny dude. He's a big guy. He's got the body type. He's ready to go. But he'll handle that cold weather just fine too up in Chicago. But Rob, let's break down the NFC North real quick. You got disgruntled Aaron Rodgers up in Green Bay. When he gets shipped out of Green Bay, whether it's this year or next year, because I think at this point, the clock, what happened today was I think a clock was set. And I think we're at least, maybe Rodgers plays 2021 in Green Bay, but I don't think he's there past 2021. Okay? So let's say that's true, hypothetically. Give me your power rankings of NFC North quarterbacks over the next 3 years.
Wow. If no Aaron Rodgers is in the NFC North, then, Kirk Cousins is still there. I think Kirk Cousins is definitely a solid quarterback. He threw,
right,
for 4,000 yards this past year. So I would definitely have to go Kirk Cousins one.
And what year is he in the league?
Wow. How I think Kirk Cousins
is he getting into 10?
10 plus, so maybe?
He might have a few more real solid years left, right?
Yeah. As long as they keep the weapons around him that he has with, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook, I think he can kind of, sprinkle out a little bit more years. But eventually he'll tail off. And then Justin Fields is right there in the pecking order to kind of take over that division if they put the pieces around him that he needs. So
that's how huge I think this move was.
Yeah.
I think you just transformed the NFC North for the next half a decade at least, potentially. So whatever Chicago gave up, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think the price was worth it. And I think this is one of the best moves that they've made in a long, long time in Chicago. So I'm putting it on that level, Rob. You got any more comments on the Bears?
No, I love the trade. They got a franchise quarterback. We know next year's draft class from the quarterback position might not be that good. So if you see a Justin Fields sliding down, which he kind of was, why not, make a move and go up and get him? And that's what Chicago did. So
yeah,
they flopped on, the Mitch Trubisky pick. I just don't think they're going to flop on this Justin Fields pick because I just think he's just so talented and he's a transcendent quarterback. So kudos to Chicago and Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace for moving up to kind of get him.
Huge move. NFC North, I think, might sway towards Chicago for the next half a decade at least here. All right, Micah Parsons at Dallas, real solid. Love the pick. That linebacking core is just going to be disgusting in Dallas. This was kind of a best player available on the board type of deal, I feel like.
Yeah, everyone kind of had Patrick Surtain Jr. mocked to Dallas at this particular position. Dallas actually moved back. So I think once Dallas realized they couldn't get, either Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn, they just say, hey, let's get the best available player on the board, and that was Michael Parsons, which is a need for them as well because Sean Lee just retired, and then Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch, they kind of been nicked up and banged up year in and year out, so they're going to need some new breaths at that linebacker position. I think Michael Parsons can be a staple in their defense for the next decade, just like you mentioned in regards to Justin Fields. I think that could be Michael Parsons.
Good point. Healthy. If the linebacking core is healthy, it's one of the best. Man, they've had some bad luck with keeping linebackers healthy in Dallas. That's been a problem. Rashawn Slater to the Chargers. This was the no-brainer pick. I think I saw Dan Shanka tweet out, like, I'd be running to the podium right now if I were the Chargers. I mean, I by no means proclaim myself to be an offensive line expert, but the people who do know offensive line that we trust, that we read, they rave about this guy. And this was like, I know everyone keeps referencing the matchup against Chase Young a couple years back. Slater didn't play this year. He opted out, but they said he's just all around intangibles, everything. This guy's supposed to be about as can't miss as it can be. And I think the Chargers end up getting a real good tackle.
Yeah, and that's something that they needed to kind of protect, Justin Herbert. If all their pieces on the defense side can come back and stay healthy and, bolster Derwin James, I think, why not shore up that offensive line with Justin Herbert for the future? So this can be, a left tackle or right tackle, wherever Rashawn Slater lands on the depth chart to help Justin Herbert, with the passing game moving forward. So I really love this pick for the San Diego Chargers, and he kind of fell right to him. So why not take him? And they did. I think it works out for both parties involved.
Well, and 14, we mentioned the Jets pick already. We won't recap that again. Mac Jones to New England at 15. You're just watching the quarterback thing work out. You're like, man, the Patriots are going to – I just did not want Fields to go to New England. So of all the quarterbacks, you knew New England was going to have a chance to probably grab someone. Of all the quarterbacks, I'm okay with the Jones thing. Obviously, the Brady comparisons are there. Like, in terms of style, I definitely see it. I think this is a great pick. Things just always work out for these guys. It feels like Cam Newton's going to be able to tutor him for a year or two. Like, you don't have to rush him on the field. Great situation. And like we said, we both feel like New England's going to be back in the mix next year anyway.
Yeah, we had countless of conversations talking about New England being a contender this upcoming season, but I love the pick. But at Mac Jones, I didn't love Mac Jones being the number 3rd pick of the NFL draft, but I love Mac Jones being the number 15 pick of the NFL draft. And the New England Patriots didn't even have to trade up to get him. He kind of fell right in their laps. But one thing that
it's a fit, right?
Yeah, it's a great fit. But one thing that raises pause and concern for me is not so necessarily about Mac Jones, it's about Jarrett Stidham. So we know Cam Newton's going to be there for the next year or two, but what does it says about Jarrett Stidham? I don't think he's the guy moving forward. I think this is Mac Jones' team moving forward, and I think he can actually, run this team really, really well if he has the pieces around him. That's the key point. You have to have the pieces around him. They brought in Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. I think they should get a nice running back, complimentary running back, maybe Colin Hill or somebody like that in the later rounds that can run out the backfield, catch, block, and everything like that. But I think this is a great fit for Matt Jones and the New England Patriots moving forward.
I think they're going to grab – there's a couple of these scat guys like Rondale Moore. They're going to grab someone that's going to make a ton of sense, and you're just going to be like, ugh. Like, God help us if Elijah Moore ends up in New England. I dread them every time they come up because I'm just worried they're going to make a franchise changing decision again, like with some of these picks, but they don't always hit on the draft picks. So you can stay calm about that if you don't like the Patriots, but the Cardinals go Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. A lot of great reviews on this guy, freaky athlete. Dan, we talked about it with Dan Shanka last week, slipped through the cracks to get there. Arizona also has Isaiah Simmons on this defense, so they seem to have a type. So kind of the raw, if you're a freaky athlete, a little raw, they feel like they can coach you up. I mean, that's going to be a good defense out there in Arizona for years to come. I like the pick, but I don't have a lot to say outside of still it probably needs a little bit of development. I think he'll be able to contribute, but I believe they lost Hassan Reddick, even though he never really totally panned out for them. He signed somewhere else this offseason, so it's good fit. Good fit. Nothing exciting.
Yeah, nah, you're right. I think it's a great fit. You already have Isaiah Simmons on the the roster. You have Buda Baker on the back end. So I thought maybe they'll go cornerback because of the loss of Patrick Peterson and kind of replenish that position. But once you have Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn go off the board, that third quarterback, maybe Greg Newsome, he was there. They could have took him, but they wasn't that comfortable. But Xavier Collins and Isaiah Simmons, those are going to be two guys that can run sideline to sideline, and just the athletes that you're looking for. So when you're facing Atlanta Falcons with the Kyle Pitts at tight end, maybe you can kind of match up an Isaiah Simmons and Xavier Collins with a Kyle Pitts or the Rob Gronkowski's or the Travis Kelce's of the world. So I really like this pick, and you can kind of see what the Arizona is doing with the defense.
I think you can group the next. Let's go from 17 through. I like the Vikings pick at 23 with Darashaw. So 17 through 22. These are the hey, these guys are good athletes. Let's take a shot. But I don't think any of these guys are guarantees right now. Yeah, Alex Leatherwood to Vegas, which if you looked at mock drafts about a year ago, he was clearly in this range. Fell off completely, didn't have a great Senior Bowl week, but they said in the big moments last year, he stepped up. He played well. The only red flags I get with guys who kind of fall off the map and then play big on they're inconsistent but play well in big moments tells me you got the talent, but you're probably a little bit like you just turn it on and off a little bit. So that's a little bit of a red flag there. But you're going out to play for Gruden. Can't fault the Raiders for going O-line. They definitely needed the help. Hey, Washington goes Jamin Davis from Kentucky, the linebacker. Good athlete. A lot of positive stuff on him. Daniel Jeremiah, I love the guy. I know that. Kadarius Toney to the Giants. I hate it. I hate that he ended up there. I love Toney. I think he's a great player. I just, you can look at that offense. You can be like Galladay, Toney, Ingram, Barkley, but Daniel Jones. And I think this is a defensive minded team. I don't think they're going to open it up and be that creative. And I think his talents are going to be wasted in New York. I think if you're a Giants fan, I saw the clip of the Giants fan going like, who, like when they drafted him, they don't even know who he is. It's like, you don't appreciate what you're getting. Like, I wish you would have felt in New Orleans or something, but I don't. But Rob, the last two I'll read off here. Kwity Paye to Indy, solid pick, adding to a solid defensive front. But we'll see how that goes. And Caleb Farley, who we thought may drop out of the first round with news of an extra back surgery, and I think he's isolating right now. He has COVID at the moment, but that shouldn't drop your draft stock. But just throwing it out there. But solid career at Virginia Tech, gets drafted, projected in the first round, pretty much. Not a huge surprise he went first, ends up in Tennessee. So, Rob, which of those guys I just read off do you like as a fit, like that's the best fit in their spot?
I think Caleb Farley. I think Caleb Farley could actually be the steal of the draft. It was actually talk that he would be one of the first corners taken off the board. He opted out, this past year or whatever. And I know it was back and forth between him and Patrick Surtain. J.C. Horn kind of came on a little bit late, but it was Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain. Those were the two names. But once again, just like you mentioned, he's been nicked up. He's been banged up with the injury. So if he can kind of, be available, I think, out of that particular group, he was definitely one of the best picks around that time. And in the defensive end for Indianapolis, Kwity Paye from Michigan. We've seen what
that pick.
We've seen what the Colts have done with the defensive end position and Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney. So if he can kind of have that type of impact with Darius Leonard at the linebacker position, I think they can do some damage on the defensive side of the ball for Indianapolis. So The Alex Leatherwood pick, to me, it was kind of a reach. I think, the Vegas could have got him later on. If that was the guy that they liked, maybe they could have drafted back and picked him up, because I don't think anyone was going to grab him that early like the Raiders did. But you've been seeing this from Mike Mayock the last couple of years. They reached on Damian Arnett, the cornerback out of Ohio State last year.
In the same spot, basically, right?
Pretty much. And the year before that, Colin Farrell out of, Clemson. So Mike Mayock has been doing some reaching the last couple of years. But I don't think Alex Leatherwood is a left tackle or right tackle in the NFL. I think they're going to have to bring him in at guard because he is a little bit athletic deficiency. He's not like the Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slaters of the world. But that helps out Josh Jacobs in that running game, and it gives Derek Carr a piece to kind of help him stand upright. So I understand the pick, but I just think they could have got him further in the back of the draft. So,
right, definitely in position of need though.
Yeah, but value pick, maybe not so much because it's a couple more offensive tackles and offensive linemen that could have went in front of Alex. Yep.
Hey, the more I look at the Jamin Davis pick out of Kentucky too, you get an athletic linebacker running behind that defensive line in Washington. Woo! And Ron Rivera's there, so I trust Ron. I trust Ron Rivera to build a defense on that. But what do you think? Am I too hard on the Giants about Kadarius Toney? Because even though all the weapons are there, I don't see it. I don't see it working out. Like,
I definitely understand your sentiments in regards to Kadarius Toney as a scheme fit for the New York Giants, but
I love Toney the player. It's the Giants. I don't like the fit in New York.
I think one thing we saw last year where Josh Allen made the improvement was, having Cole Beasley. Those option routes that we talk about running from the slot. And I think, Kadarius Toney probably runs that stick option route better than anyone in the NFL draft because he's so shifty and quick. Yeah. So if him and Daniel Jones can kind of get on the same page and, get that going, I think that helps both players out because, Daniel Jones, you got Darius Slayton, which is that type of receiver that's going to take the top off a defense. You have Kenny Golladay, which is that jump ball, red zone target. And then you have, Sterling Shepard, which is a route runner. He runs all the routes. And if Saquon Barkley can stay healthy, I think this offense can really do some damage, especially with the secondary that they're going to be going up against with the Philadelphia Eagles, which is they need people in the secondary. The Dallas Cowboys, they need people in the secondary. So the New York Giants is right there to steal the division and get in the playoffs. So I really like this pick, getting more explosive on the offense side of the ball. And then, you know what? Maybe they can move Kadarius Toney around and use him to kind of take pressure off of Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So I like him as a weapon, but I definitely understand your sentiments as far as scheme fit with the New York Giants.
So a lot of elite weapons with a mediocre quarterback. Do you think that this is maybe the place where Aaron Rodgers lands?
I mean, it could be. I mean,
if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm looking at that going, they're just missing it me.
Yeah, I tell you what, we saw what their defense did last year. It played really, really well. Blake Martinez, Jabril Peppers, Leonard Williams coming over from the Jets, resurrecting his career with the in-state rival of the Giants. So
this is a fit.
I really think, that is something that the Giants could explore. And I tell you what, Aaron Rodgers would use all of those weapons to his advantage, and they would be way better than what they would be with Daniel Jones. But, Daniel Jones was coming on a little bit last year. Maybe they run a little bit more read option with Daniel Jones and, have Kadarius Toney to kind of run those scream and bubble routes with. So it's more so how they're going to use Daniel Jones with the weapons that he has. And, it's up to Daniel Jones to kind of, progress like Josh Allen did last year. So, but I definitely understand you, Nick, in regards to the scheme.
Okay. I'm going to put it this way. Jameis Winston could, after Brady retires, could become a Pro Bowl quarterback that wins 3 Super Bowls in New Orleans. And I still think there will be Bucks fans who have no regrets about getting rid of Jameis Winston for Tom Brady. I
Yeah.
think this moment in Tampa Bay's Buccaneers history is your shining glory that you could hold on and 20 years from now smile and be like, remember when we had Tom Brady play for us? I think like the Giants, what do you got to give up? What do you got to give up to get Aaron Rodgers into New York? And by the way, I don't think Aaron Rodgers would be shy to play in New York, and he definitely could handle it. That offense. If Kadarius Toney gets a real playmaker at quarterback, and I'm not knocking Daniel Jones entirely. I just think his ceiling is about. I mean, on a good season, he might be a top 10 quarterback on a good season. If not, it's going to be like right in the middle, and I don't think he's going to be able to maximize all the weapons around him. And Barkley's coming off a major injury too, so that's not like a guarantee for 2021 ready to pop right in there. But if the Giants could get a little help you can always get help in the backfield. That's not hard to find. But boy, that'd be interesting. All right, I'm gonna talk about your Vikings, Rob.
I love the move. I love the trade back to kind of, pick up more picks. And at the end of the day, we addressed the position of need, which was the offensive line. And we got Christian Darrisaw, who's right up there with, Rashawn Slater and, Elijah Vera Tucker. So I think, one thing that made Darrisaw drop was, the talk about his work ethic. But I tell you what, when you're blocking for Dalvin Cook and when you're protecting Kirk Cousins to throw to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, trust me, I think he's going to have the great work ethic, especially with Mike Zimmer at head coach. So we're going to see if his work ethic's a problem early on because Mike Zimmer will definitely let us know it.
How many picks did they pick up from the Jets? Do you know exactly what they traded?
Yeah. So initially, Minnesota had four fourth-round picks. They actually, moved back in position with the Jets and gave the Jets a fourth-round pick, but they picked up 2/3 from the Jets.
Ooh, that's pretty good. That's for what, eight spot drop, 7 spot drop? That's not bad.
So I was definitely impressed with the Minnesota Vikings and picking up the more picks to, fill out that roster. So and they addressed a position of need on the offensive line.
Yeah.
So
I saw Darrisaw mocked to them at 14 before, so they got their guy and fell back. That's perfect. Najee Harris to Pittsburgh. Saw that mocked a bunch. I wasn't ready to believe the Steelers were going to take anything other than a linebacker in the first round, but I mean, this guy is going to be. I just feel like he's going to be a star no matter where he goes. But I've been wrong about Alabama running backs before. But outside of Trent Richardson, they don't bust out super hard. They're usually at least decent players. And I just feel like with Najee playing with Ben this year, catching balls out of the back. I mean, if you're a fantasy football player, is Najee Harris like the number one rookie that you want right now?
I think he has to be kind of similar to what, the going rate for Jonathan Taylor last year during fantasy. So,
yeah.
And Jonathan Taylor is not necessarily one of those running backs to catch out the backfield like a Najee Harris. I just think, Najee Harris is one of those, once in a lifetime athletes that come around. And I'm so glad that we had actually 2 running backs taken in the first round because I'm just sick and tired of this narrative. Oh, you can find these guys in the later rounds. Not like a Najee Harris and a Travis Etienne. So just stop it. Just put it to rest.
Yeah, those guys aren't around late.
That's why Zeke Elliott went the way he did. That's why Saquon went the way he did. Todd Gurley, because you just can't find those guys, in the late rounds of the draft. Now, maybe they body break down during the process and they're not the same player, but, they can give you 3 to 4 years of good play. And I think that's what Najee Harris can do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he resembles that Le'Veon Bell mode where he can kind of run between the tackles, run on the outside, and catch out the backfield and pass block. So I think he's just a complete back that's going to help Pittsburgh moving forward and take the pressure off Big Ben.
He's one of the most easy plug and play guys right off the bat. But one of those guys that proves your argument, that works against your argument, is James Robinson down in Jacksonville. He's got a little competition in the backfield now with Travis Etienne. We mentioned that with Lawrence coming in. You like the pick at 25 for the Jags, or do you feel like they reached a little bit? Do you think they could have waited to grab him? I mean, dude, they're drafting at 33. Could they have waited at 33 and grabbed someone else?
Well,
maybe.
Maybe, but I know Buffalo was interested in a running back as well.
Yeah.
And, maybe that was just saying, hey, we can't wait too long because Buffalo is right there. So I think, they grabbed them in a decent spot. And we know what Urban Meyer wants to do. He wants to have speed on the field. And, in the NFL, it's really a backfield by committee. It really seems like Derrick Henry is the only one that, gets run into the ground like a traditional workhorse running back. But for the most part, everything is a backfield by committee. Great change of pace back for James Robinson. You know what kind of year he had last year. But, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne in the backfield, this is going to be special in Jacksonville. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
I like the 1-2 punch with Robinson too. If I'm Robinson,
Yep.
I welcome him in town because I feel like, hey, if as long as I'm contributing still, I'm happy. But I welcome the opportunity to compete, and I think it's going to be they bring different elements to the game. So I think Robinson's definitely still got a role with the Jags. Greg Newsome, another corner, Northwestern, goes to Cleveland. Just a solid pickup. The Browns really, they revamped their entire secondary this offseason, signed a couple guys from the Rams, but they get Grant Delpit back from injury too. It's gonna be a different deal on the back end of that Cleveland defense this year.
Yeah, I tell you what, it really seems like they, hit on a pick. Whether they would have went with the, I thought, maybe they go with Christian Barrymore a little bit more than the cornerback because they did sign a couple of secondary people in the offseason. So I thought that would be a better fit, especially with the Jadeveon Clowney signing and Myles Garrett on the outside. So not only do you have those two in pass rushes, but you have Christian Barrymore who can also rush the passer from the inside, kind of like an Aaron Donald type of player. So I thought that would be the better fit, but solid pick, with Newsome at the cornerback position. So I can't complain too much for the Cleveland Browns. And they kind of have everything, depending if Odell comes back and they want to work him back in. I think, this Cleveland roster has been built up pretty well the last couple of years.
Baltimore, 2 picks. They made that trade with Kansas City last week. This is one of my favorite first rounds. I mean, first off, Baltimore's track record is just phenomenal in general, but Rashad Bateman, they get that all around threat. I think we specifically mentioned Bateman in Baltimore would be awesome. Like, just he could take off the top of the defense. He can also just be a third down guy. He can do everything. So they don't have that type of receiver right now in Baltimore. Great pickup there. But I do like the Jason Owa pick too, because they took a chance. It's not a guarantee, but again, Baltimore, they always seem to develop these pass rushers that are just freaky athletic. So it just, both of these picks just fit so well. I like the risk on Owa, even though that's not like he didn't have the stats that everybody loved. I like the risk in the first round there by the Ravens. So I give the first round solid A for Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really like the Owa pick. We've seen freakish athletes that really didn't have the stats or really didn't have a lot on the game film. Perfect example, we saw Ziggy Ansah, who never really played football growing up, but kind of just test the waters. And he was a high draft pick with the Detroit Lions. And then we see a JPP coming out who kind of caught on to playing football later in his career. And look, he's what, 3-time Super Bowl champ, two with the Giants and one with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, and he
played a big role in both,
and he resurrected his career after the freak accident with the fireworks and everything.
Right.
So I think, when with the Baltimore Ravens in that organization, they do a great job in the draft and they always goes defense. But just like you said, Rashad Bateman, they got the guy that they needed. True number one receiver to pair with Lamar Jackson. They got their running back for the future in J.K. Dobbins in last year's draft. Ronnie Stanley is coming back on the offensive line from injuries. I know they gave up Orlando Brown in the trade to get more picks, but I think it will work out for Baltimore moving forward. They're just a great draft organization that does really well during the draft. So I can't tear them down. I really give it an A, just like you said, Nick.
Saints, a little more questionable. Peyton Turner out of Houston, defensive end. I did his film clips, and by the way, the Peyton Turner clip on our website does really well on the viewing. So if anyone wants to check out Peyton Turner, defensive end Houston, on American Football Stories on YouTube, that gets a lot of run for us. But Peyton Turner, good player, man. He's really solid. I mean, he's going to go in the second round. I can't complain. It's the top of the first. These are the types of picks you can have when you're in New Orleans, and you can just be like, oh, this guy, we really like him. He's athletic. Let's take him. So they're kind of set at quarterback. They don't have that immediate dire need. The thing I heard someone say is receiver would have been cool. Like, I mean, you got Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore sitting out there. Man, if Kadarius Toney was sitting there, I just want to see Sean Payton get a couple more toys on that offense to really kind of help give them a little jolt post Drew Brees.
Yeah, and I was right there with you. I tell you what, I know it was kind of a little talking earlier in the day that the Saints might move up in the
for quarterback, right?
For a quarterback in the top 10. But I know they also needed a corner as well. And, you know, they missed out on the top guys. And they addressed, you know, neither one. And just like you said, I really wish they would have drafted one of the Moores in this position, whether it was Elijah Moore or Rondell Moore. And Emmanuel Sanders is not there anymore. So, you know, the season that Michael Thomas had last year, he was kind of beat up, banged up. So I really
struggled.
Pretty much, you know, it's Alvin Kamara and everyone else. If it's not Michael Thomas, it's just the Alvin Kamara show. So I wish they would have got, you know, another weapon to kind of take the pressure off Alvin Kamara. But they didn't. But, you know, that's Sean Payton and the Saints. They're there.
It's a long draft.
They're there every year, so you can't question what they do because they're competitive every year, year in and year out. So they'll definitely be back. And that was one of the teams that didn't they beat Tampa twice?
Twice.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just having flashbacks to when they traded up out of nowhere to get Marcus Davenport out of UTSA.
Yeah.
And I don't watch enough Saints football that closely to tell you exactly how he's doing. Other than I just never really hear about him. So that's probably my answer right there. So either he's going to supplement that or he's Turner's your Cam Jordan's getting a little long in the tooth. And let's start thinking about the future on that. And again, when you're a team that's as talented as the Saints, because I think you forget they play like crap in that game against the Bucs in the playoffs.
Yep.
But they outplayed the Bucs in the regular season. They were a great team last year, even without Drew Brees. They played some good football. So I think they're contenders in the NFC, and they just have some luxuries to kind of they kind of just took a flyer on this guy. See what happens. Eric Stokes out of Georgia goes to Green Bay, another team who kind of drafts like that. By the way, speaking of which, do you think like this front office in Green Bay pronounces Aaron Rodgers' name Rodgers? Do you think do they even know? Like, do they care? Do they not like? Oh, this Rodgers fella is not too happy with us right now. They don't. I don't think they even pay attention to it. They probably mispronounce Adam Schefter's name too, even when Schefter's reporting it. So they just don't seem to respond to it in any way whatsoever, which. On the one hand, I know there's probably a segment of America going like, good, don't respond to these petulant athletes. But like Aaron Rodgers, if you're star employee, to some point when you reach a certain level of stardom, you deserve a certain level of petulance, like where we can excuse it. I mean, there's a reason why Dennis Rodman was allowed to go to Las Vegas for a couple days with the Chicago Bulls, right? In that document, like, you can get away with a few things if you do enough. And Aaron Rodgers might be bothering some people right now, but if I could see why Rodgers looks at some of this stuff and gets frustrated. And this is an opportunity tonight for the Packers to, I mean, good for them for sticking to their guns and going with what they want to do. But man, maybe like get them a new toy in the first round. Like, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore. I know we're going to keep talking about. I know Mel Kiper is actually there making fun of him for how much he's mentioning Elijah Moore. He's like, by the way, Elijah Moore's available. Like, yeah, like Green Bay, you probably could have. Randall Cobb, did Randall Cobb play okay up there? Like, could he have been a Randall Cobb type for you? Like, did he work okay with Rodgers? Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what, it really seemed like someone in that front office or in that war room didn't check the temperature today, because it was flaming. It was flaming.
Yeah.
Not only in Wisconsin, but across the world in regards to this Aaron Rodgers news. And you would think that the Green Bay Packers would get another weapon to put on the other side of Devontae Adams, or kind of work somebody in the slot.
And not just to appease
Yeah,
Rodgers, like because you actually need it.
yeah, yeah.
But if you could accomplish both at the same time, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and they could have accomplished both at the same time,
Yeah.
with either drafting Rondell Moore or Elijah Moore. But to actually draft Eric Stokes, don't get me wrong. I know that secondary needs a little bit of help, but it really seems like they could use more weapons on the offense side than a secondary, because Kevin King and Jair Alexander have been playing pretty well on the back end, and
Right.
they have the Smith brothers on the outside that can create a pass rush. So I think, if they're getting a consistent pass rush with the Smith brothers, I think, the defensive back maybe not can be your best position, especially if you're getting that pass rush up front. But on the offense side of the ball, you have to compete with the Tampa Bays and the Tom Brady's of the world. You have to compete with the Patrick Mahomes of the world, the Josh Allens of the world now. So I tell you what, you can never have too many weapons on the offense side of the ball, and it just seems like they don't want to have Aaron Rodgers don't want to have no weapons at all. So
Yeah.
it's pretty shocking.
I think the Packers are doing so little that maybe Jordan Love's getting tired of them already. This Rodgers thing is fascinating. I think it completely took over draft night. I mean, outside if you're a Jaguars fan, you're getting Trevor Lawrence for the next 10 years. So yeah, I think that's great. Gregory Rousseau to the Bills, missed last year due to COVID opt out. Freak athlete. They kept talking about pass rush of Pat Mahomes critical, especially that new offensive line. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think we've seen these guys go. I mean, Greg Rousseau is not being drafted here for his accomplishments. He's being drafted here because he's blessed with a ridiculously good frame and athleticism, and that's good enough. There's not a lot of I don't know how tall he's exactly. He's freaking big though,
like 6'6" or something.
Yeah, I thought he was in the 6'7" range. It's like just for a guy that big to run like that, just those humans don't exist on a high level, so that's why accomplishments don't matter as much. So guys who are that big, who run that fast and are that strong are very few and far between. So hey, again, Buffalo, you're good. You can take these swings now. This used to be a Buffalo pick at like number 8 though. Yeah. And now they're doing it like at the appropriate point in the draft where they need to. So I like it. I don't think it's a difference maker. I think he'll probably end up being just another rotational player that's going to be okay. I don't think Greg Rousseau's going to – I don't think we're going to look back at his pick like 10 years from now and be like, wow, that was that's why the Bills won the Super Bowl. But I think he could be a contributor on a good rotating line. So
yeah, no, I think it's one of those, just like you said, when you're picking in this particular part of the draft, you can make those luxury picks, and right. I think this was a luxury pick. They drafted AJ Epinesa last year out of Iowa, so
Ed Oliver a few years back,
and so Ed Oliver. So if they can kind of, all these guys can kind of catch fire at the same time, then you'll probably be talking about this defensive front seven like you're talking about the Washington football team. So, but that's all of these guys, at their peak. So if they spark fire, I think this will be a great pick. But just like you said, right now it's just one of those rotational picks, and hopefully he can kind of bloom into being that consistent pass rusher year in and year out. And that's what you're hoping for, because just like you said, people his size that runs the way he runs doesn't fall off trees that much. So I think it was a great luxury pick and a great value pick at this time in the draft.
Buffalo's a good team. They'll be ahead a lot, and he'll be able to rush the passer late in the second half. So I think he could be a rookie that makes a little bit of noise if he's played right. Love the Joe Tryon pick to Tampa Bay. Just solid contributor out in Washington, another freaky athlete off the edge. That's your JPP replacement, folks.
Yeah.
Might not replace JPP exactly, but that's your guy who's going to be filling in long term. So they address a serious need. But he gets to study behind JPP, develop with Ndamukong Suh next to him. I mean, it's a beautiful situation for Joe Tryon to walk into in Tampa Bay right now. Almost as nice as it's going to be some kid walking into the Giants in a couple of years after Aaron Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers starts winning Super Bowls in New York. So I'm glad we figured out this whole Aaron Rodgers thing. He's going to the Giants.
That I'm telling you, that will be a bombshell right there. And the New York Knicks is making a return to come back to the national stage.
Oh, you're not investing in that story, are you?
I tell you what, if Aaron Rodgers ends up in New York, we all know how much New York loves their sports teams, and they're going to be right up there on the front page with the Knicks if Aaron Rodgers was to come to the Giants.
Woo! Good. That'd be good. Little Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson would just have no chance to get off the ground. Yes. Aaron Rodgers comes in. That would be incredible. If I'm Gettleman, I'm like, oh, you can have the rest of my draft. Like, whatever. Like, we got you, Kadarius Toney, Aaron Rodgers. He'll be like, that's more than the Packers have done for me in the last 10 years. That's great. So everybody's happy that way. So, Rob, real winner tonight for me, Chicago Bears. I know you gave up some stuff to move up to go get Fields, but that's the type of move you got to make in the draft. I think a lot of teams play it conservative. I don't love the conservative approach. We saw New England sit back and they got exactly who they probably wanted from day one. Like the great fit with Mac Jones. I like that move. But in terms of just seeing a team go up and get something that made sense, and you're like, hell yeah! Like the fist pump moment of the night for me was the Bears trading up and getting Justin Fields. No question about it.
Yeah. I tell you what, I think, the winner for me, it might sound crazy, but it just seems like the last 2 years, you had two transcendent players that kind of fell in their laps, and that's the Dallas Cowboys with CD Lamb last year and Michael Parsons this year.
Point.
So I really think, Michael Parsons with the Cowboys and Michael Parsons on that defense side of the ball and CD Lamb on that offense side of the ball is going to be playmakers for the Dallas Cowboys for years to come. So I really think the Cowboys was the winner of round one for me with Michael Parsons landing there.
Nice. And so what are you looking forward to in rounds 2 or 3? What questions do you still want to see answered? Give me like your biggest question or two that you're looking at.
I think, we kind of saw the running backs come off the board, at least 2 of them. And those were probably going to be the 2 that come off the board either late in the first round or early in the second. So they're finally off. So I just kind of want to see what's the run on the quarterbacks is going to be like. Is it going to be Kellen Mond, Davis Mills, Kyle Trask early in the draft, or those guys are going to fall later in the second round or maybe to the third? So I think that's one thing that I'm going to be looking for on day 2.
Kyle Trask, Davis Mills. Yeah, those are 2 interesting storylines to watch right there. I'm just going to look at, to me, I want to see, I'm very interested to see what direction the Lions go. The Jags have several picks, and do the Bengals start addressing their issues up front? Let's see what happens. We'll get a couple of rounds of answers on that.
Yeah, I think they do. Once again, this is probably one of the deepest offensive line classes that I can remember. And then will it be a run on offensive linemen? And I think it can also be a run on, defensive tackles and defensive ends. So I think that's another thing that we can see moving forward.
Looking forward to it, man. Hey, Rob, we are wrapping up. It is late right now, but got to do it. Dedicated to the craft here. That was good. We stayed up. We got it done. Round 1, the books. Running on pure adrenaline right now and enjoyed the hell out of it tonight. Can't wait for round 2 tomorrow night, round 3.
Yes, sir. We'll be back tomorrow for round 2 coverage. So I'm excited, dude. This is probably going to be the draft that's going to change the shape of the NFL for at least the next decade. With the COVID year, with the kind of change in the faces, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, those guys won't be around for too long. So, the Trevor Lawrence, the Justin Fields, the Zach Wilsons, if they pan out, those are going to be the names that people are going to remember. So
Yeah.
I think this draft is definitely going to be that transcendent draft moving forward for the NFL.
That's a good point because I mean, you look back at the previous generation. What was it, like the 2004 draft with Roethlisberger, Manning, Rivers? That we haven't had one like that in a minute. It's been a minute. So, all right. Well, rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. We will do another show after. Like we were being ambitious and saying after every round. We'll do it after the third round though. We'll do it. We'll knock it all out tomorrow again. Have a new episode up for y'all on by Saturday morning or Friday late Friday, early Saturday, and then we'll recap everything on Saturday night or Sunday. We'll figure that out over the weekend. But lots of NFL ahead of us. Definitely cannot wait. Starts to get to the meat of the draft. I think rounds 2 and 3 are actually my favorite rounds of the draft. I love the first round, but rounds 2 and 3 are kind of where you really start to sort it out. So really psyched for tomorrow, Rob.
Yep. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Though these are going to be the players who might not necessarily get the buzz, their rookie year, but they will be, impactful.
Should be starters
in some way or another. So,
yeah.
I'm excited to see what players come off the board.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Rob. Good effort tonight. Get some sleep and take it easy, man. We'll send it out with the word from our sponsor, Coach Paint.
American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly telestrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and we'd love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.